Hi guys, let's go watching. Just before that, subscribe and enjoy yourself. It all starts in a large luxury house. A young girl is sitting in a room reading a book. A little girl comes into the room. She has made tea for the other woman, fruit tea as she liked. She is allowed to enter and is happy about it. She begins to tell me that the weather is beautiful today and that her favorite flowers. The woman did not listen to what she had to say. She was disturbing her, so she asked to be left alone. Elma was embarrassed but bowed and left the room, leaving the lady alone. If she hadn't told her that, she would have continued to stand there, a little rude, but it was better for her to be honest. Her lady hadn't lost her memory at all. She was a completely different person now. It all started with one dream. She was asleep, but she understood everything well. There were also people around, she was invited to enter another room, and she was embarrassed. Even in her sleep, she had to go through an interview. Perhaps it's because she can't find a job. She entered a beautiful and large hall, where a woman invited her, waited for her, and asked her to sit down. She was asked to tell us about herself, her age, hobbies, strengths, and all that, and she had a strange approach to it. She started introducing herself. Her name was Lee Ruley. She was 25. The girl was asked about her tolerance to physical activity and stress. She told me that she is generally good at adapting to anything. Next, they ask if she knows how to lie, if she is going to be married to a terribly narcissistic man, what she will do then. Ruley asked if she could just not get married, but there was no such option, so it was interesting to find out how narcissistic he. The woman began to tell him that his fiancée was very ill, and he was telling her that he does not want to live with a woman who is bedridden. And the girl was shocked. He was just crazy. How could she? She laughed. She had the same thoughts. She went on to say that Miss Lee's Ruley should be able to handle everything. She abruptly hugged the girl, which was unexpected. She apologized for not telling me everything at once and introduced herself as Albertina and that she was. Lee Ruley did not understand what was happening. The floor seemed to disappear from under her feet, and the two of them flew down. During this flight, Albertina asked the girl to be her and said something else, but it was too hard to hear. So we're back to square one, a whole Sunday has passed, and she's resigned herself to where she is. At first, it was so strange. She woke up in a new place and was confused. It was then that she realized she had become a different person. There were various rumors. Some people thought she was an addict, others that she was cursed or simply crazy. She traveled to another time, to a place she did not know, but she knew one thing for sure. Now she was Albertina von The girl was just a miserable toy in the wrong hands, and there was a rich buyer for her. The lady was a puppet in the hands of her father, Count Rosenberg, and her mother was dead. She lived with her. Nothing more was known. Why is she here? What should she do? How did Albertina has to pull herself together, come up with a plan, a way to return? All of this happened because the girl wanted something. And maybe if you need to understand its problems, to become a part of this world and what surrounds it. It would be easier if she understood their writing. She read it several times but could not understand it, although she speaks their language well. Her butler Joseph enters the room and tells her that guests have arrived and she needs to meet them. Her husband, Sir Killian, arrived at the palace. Albertina was shocked. She didn't know he was coming. The head maid gave everyone errands. While the sir is talking to the gentleman, they are supposed to help Mrs. Rosenberg with her clothes, while the two girls approached Elma, mockingly suggesting that she go to work in the kitchen. As she was no longer needed in the chambers, she was scared and embarrassed. Everything is different now. No one comes to her for help anymore. The maid offered her to go with the others and help Mrs. Rosen. The kitchen was in full swing. Everyone was busy with their own processes. The two cooks were talking at the time, and they thought that if the lady didn't remember anything, it was a good chance to start over with her, and it could be considered a new. Everyone did not understand how one could not admire such a man. One of the cooks began. Her husband was sitting across from her, frozen like a statue. Albertina just smiled at him. She was told to sit as usual. The gentleman said that her memory had not yet returned. Their family's reputation depended on her. I wonder what she had done before, why she had such a relationship with her husband. One way or another, the girl asked why he didn't tell her he was coming, but he did. She was just sick at the time and didn't know he was aware of the events. The maids entered the room, started setting the table, and brought them tea. The girl was confused by his unexpected question about memory loss, and he said that it was actually not bad, although the situation itself. She didn't understand what he meant and asked what Prince Killian meant by that. He tilted his head and asked, "A prince?" She thought she had said something wrong, but he was just amused to see her like that. Albertina smiled. She had to save face. She had only addressed him by his title. The man does not remember her addressing him like that before, but he is still amused by the whole situation. It was as if a weight had been lifted from the girl's soul, and it seems that this guy and the other one are the same. Elma was waiting for the lady. She wanted to talk to her after the meeting with her husband was over, when the door opened and she came in. She began to run to Albertina, wanting to ask her everything. Prince Killian came out from behind the lady. It was not expected that he would come out with her at this time. It was clear the girl bowed to him. He didn't even pay attention and didn't say anything. Elma was worried. She asked if she was okay. If her husband had done anything to her, she was worried about the lady. To be honest, the girl is not comfortable with her. When she woke up, right next to her bed, this child was the only one crying for Alberta. She was probably the only one who showed such warmth. It seems that she has no one close. The girl started to worry, which could mean that she would easily realize that she was not the real Albertina, and this would not happen. The lady turned to the kid. She had to tell her everything. She understood that they were very close and she appreciated it. But she tells her that because of her illness, her excessive care sometimes irritates her, because she is not her sister, but she asked me not to move her until her memory returned. It was hard for her to say this because the girl was bound. The prince appeared from behind her. He scared her. She thought he had already left. What a bastard. Her husband tells her that he has come for a few days, that she is feeling better, so they can prepare for the wedding, and of course she has to go with him. He asked her if she no longer needed bed rest. Albertina was shocked. He had put her in front of the fact a week ago at the Rotary Palace. The man is informed that Albertina von Rosenberg has... The man threw a pen at the prince in anger. That girl was supposed to die. The man angrily ordered Killian to bring that girl here. This land is still under his inheritance. He must not let her die and ruin everything. The prince leans over Albertina and begins to explain that this marriage only leads... He decided to remind her that she was just a bargaining chip in her father's hands. Her opinion doesn't matter. The man was furious. He said that she should bite her tongue and keep quiet. Let her try not to die at this time. Killian had pushed her away. It would be useless to resist now. Her task was to be an obedient wife. The man leaves her and finally says that perhaps she should go and rest now and that they will see each other at dinner. Albertina entered the room. She leaned against the door and slowly slid down it. She was very tired. She almost broke down even though she wanted to, but could she resist him? The girl tried to hold back her tears. She needed to keep herself together and think about what to do next. The maid comes into the room and says that dinner is already served and she has to leave, but she was shocked to see the lady. The assistant asked what was wrong with her. Her hair and dress were in a terrible state. They needed to change right. Albertina was just finishing preparations for the event. She put on a new, simple but elegant dress and suddenly heard someone approach. It was a girl of about 6 years old, probably her half-sister. After she wakes up, she hasn't seen her yet, and learns more about her over dinner. They bowed to each other. It was very awkward. She didn't know what to talk about and who would speak first. The girl wanted to ask something, but did not dare. The lady left. She was offended, looked at the maids, but they could do nothing either. Albertina was met at dinner by her father, who got up from the table, called her dear daughter, and invited her to join them. But these words were not addressed to her, but to her younger sister, whose mother asked her to show respect for her father and say something. She was embarrassed and apologized to them. The count turned to the prince, and they had already talked about it. But the man again offered to stay for a few more weeks, hoping that his daughter had not caused him any trouble. He asked me to make amends with him since she had recently suffered an illness, so let him not hold it against her and not take it as an insult. Killian begins to tell us that his brother is very angry. They have been engaged for more than a year and have not yet gotten to the wedding. It is an important union for him, and he has less patience each time, so they want to take Albertina to their place. The girl was sitting there like a petrified man. She was furious. She was sitting there and could not deny anything. She wanted to run away from that place. A young girl, the lady's half-sister, watched with sadness everything that was happening here. The lady was lying on the couch, nauseated and with a stomach ache, even though she hadn't eaten anything. It even threw her into a fever. She was all red, stretching out her hand somewhere to ask for help. But no, she'll deal with everything on her own, just like Albertina did, because no one cared about her. The pain was getting worse every time. She had to stay calm and it would pass. At least she hoped so. She wondered if there was not a single person in the entire palace she could rely on. But no, there was Elma, her only friend. When she came into this world, she did not know what awaited her, and her illness did not let her rest. But the little girl was always there to help. She could have asked her for help, but no, she would manage without it. She told her not to move her. She would manage on her own. That night she dreamed about one of the days when Albertina was sick. Some people were discussing how to help her, even thinking of calling Druids. Everyone was wondering what would happen to that little girl if the lady died, if she would simply be kicked out of the palace. But no, they just needed to listen to the cooks less, even though they didn't need them at all. But they should have kept their voices down, and one of them said so, especially since Elma could hear everything and she was looking at them. She is so afraid of how to go through all this. She has appeared in an unfamiliar city where no one is happy for her. She had become a nobody, and she didn't know what to do now. She was worried about what to do. There were only wolves around. She was all alone. How to survive it all? From the side, she heard someone's voice telling her not to worry. The girl turned abruptly, asking who it was, whose voice it was. There was no answer as such, only that he kept repeating that there was no need to worry. She would handle everything. That voice was very familiar. Was it really Albertina herself? She ran to that person, asked him to stop. She had a lot of questions, but all she heard was that everything was in its time. It ended abruptly and she woke up, her fever was gone, and she felt better. The servant spoke with Killian, who said that he had already made a list of Albertina's inheritance, which she would receive later, but that the sale of the palace had not yet been decided. The man says that the documents will come into force only after the wedding, and they will have time to sort everything out while she is away. The assistant started to say that he had already made a schedule for the lady, but he was interrupted. The man said that he would discuss Albertina's schedule with his fiancée, let him deal with more important matters, and he was embarrassed. Killian handed the letter to him and asked him to send it to Rotary immediately. The lady asked if there was a lighter dress for her, but all the expensive dresses were so heavy. The maids insisted on trying it on as it was heavy, but it was supposed to fit Sir Killian's image perfectly. It was all for his sake. Elma used to be the only one who combed Albertina's hair, but now she has to do it herself because she chased her away. Yesterday, the girl's eyes were opened. She is just a bargaining chip in the hands of her father, and everyone thinks so. What did Albertina want to tell her then was not to worry and not to be afraid. She could handle everything. The lady stopped everyone, and she would do everything else herself. Just let the butler be called to her. The girl told them not to worry. She would choose the jewelry and what to wear. Everyone said that she couldn't do that. She had to become a noble lady because her father had ordered it. She was choosing a new dress, but they had already confessed, saying that if she wore it, they would be punished, and that was the whole point. The master's assistant shouted at the servants why the lady was still not wearing makeup and no hair, and her dress was wrong. Albertina broke into the conversation, asking them not to blame her for this, as she had chosen this image for herself, and their tastes were not taken into account. The man continued to talk about his displeasure, saying that her dress was not suitable for such an event, but why dress like that if it was just an etiquette lesson and a doctor's visit? The girl thought about it and added that the doctor shouldn't see her in this way. It was only for Sir Killian, and she didn't need to wear makeup, because he didn't care about it, just like what she was wearing. The man didn't understand and kept yelling, and she calmly explained to him that it didn't make any sense. No one had told her about it, and she would have suggested this image right away. Albertina said she would accept his advice only if it did not sound like an order. Her assistants were shocked. No one thought she would be like this after losing her memory. The family's reputation will not be damaged. It came from another world. Its values are completely different. She is completely different, and I was afraid that people would realize this and what it could lead to. But now she has had enough. She made her choice. She is completely different, and she will always be different. Now she is the new Albertina. The man was still angry. He said she would not wear that dress, and if her father found out, he would be furious. The girl asked him what kind of father he was if he didn't take her opinion into account, if he was going to have a new daughter soon, so let him tell him that. Albertina decided to change the subject. She wanted to talk about the schedule he had brought her in the morning. The man hoped that the conversation would be short. It was time to see a doctor, but he could wait. They decided to talk about everything in the living room. The lady was curious about the essence of the etiquette lessons she would be taking there. They will teach about everything related to the wedding, but this was not enough for her, even if she learned everything at once. Despite the rules of etiquette, she wants to know the reasons for the engagement, and she needs a course in history, and she can't read. The assistant shook his head, saying there was no time for that. Everything was already scheduled by the hour, and they couldn't afford anything more. The girl catches on very quickly, so there are no problems. Besides, if the schedule is not rewritten, she will not come to class at all. Wedding etiquette alone will not be enough. She will only worsen her reputation. It's all in their own interests, so he shouldn't say that she is wrong. The butler tells her that she is acting very strangely today, and she smiles back as if she doesn't offer some very clever ideas, and she doesn't ask for much. The stepmother enters the room. She orders Joseph to change the schedule. She allows it, and everyone is shocked by her sudden arrival. Albertina listened carefully to what the woman was saying and agreed that simple etiquette would not be enough and that other lessons should be introduced. The man tried to say something else, but the woman did not allow him to do so. She was angry. Did he really deny her? She could not hear this anymore. Joseph apologized. He said that as soon as he was free, he would make a new schedule for the lady, but his stepmother ordered him to do it right now. The lady stopped him, asked her maids not to punish him. She chose this image herself. It was not their fault. She managed to take matters into her own hands and defend her position. Now she knows that if she gets a chance, she will definitely grab it, and she has already started. She felt that she had finally taken that step, a step forward. Albertina remembered and asked her stepmother how she could address her. But in their case, she can call it whatever she wants, regardless of the title. The girl asked the woman to make sure that Joseph would not punish her servants. It was very important to her. Her decision was a bit strange, but she would be grateful for the help. The lady was curious why they asked her to do this, but she explained that she had refused to wear a wedding dress, and they simply fulfilled her request. Irresponsibility had nothing to do with it. It was not their fault. She said sadly that she was just following someone else's will, but she didn't feel she could do anything. She didn't want them to suffer because of her decisions. She was trying to do what was best. Her stepmother was embarrassed and confused by what she said, but she understood her, and the doctor and Sir Druid were already waiting for her. All she had to do was go to them. Albertina thought that the lady would go with her, but she turned around and said that she still had plans, so she should go to them alone. The woman recalled how the girl used to ask her not to apologize when she was little because she was not angry with her. She just wants to numb the pain. What's the point? She has to stand her ground just like she does. Even after losing her memory, she retained the same character as then. In the living room, the doctor had already checked her, and she told him about a recent stomachache and a slight fever, but it had gone away by morning. The old man was smiling. They hadn't seen each other for so long, and she was already feeling better, and a blush had appeared. I don't have chest pain anymore, so my lungs are back to normal. He advised the lady to do light exercises, to increase the load each time, and not to forget about physical activity because of the disease. The girl asked if they had finished yet. The doctor said that yes, if she was not in pain anymore, even her depression was gone, then she did not need his help. His assistant was shocked. He had to keep at least some formality in front of the lady. The level of medicine has grown a lot. They started taking care of hygiene and checking the nervous system. She can exhale now because she has already imagined such things. The woman stopped the man and asked him to write his report on this parish for the count, and he did not mind writing it down since no one could come to see for themselves. His assistant was shocked. He said that this could not be. The disease was incurable. The lady could not recover so soon. An angry man came up behind me, telling me repeatedly that guesswork would not help. It is very rare to be born with this disease, but this does not mean that it can be considered incurable. The Druid began to talk about the rumors about the lady's mother, but the maid slapped the table with her hand and forbade him to talk about such things here. Let him do something else. Albertina looked at the man with curiosity. She did not know him. She felt uncomfortable when their eyes met. He smiled, walked up to the lady, and asked if she remembered him, and the answer was expected. No. So the Druid introduced himself to her. He works for the Irene family, better known as a pilgrim, one of the priests who has been serving the Rosenberg family since the 13th generation. His name is Testa, but she could call him whatever she wanted, whatever her heart desired. For her, it was as if all this was not real. Everything was so strange. It was the first time in her long stay here that she was treated with such warmth. Testa sits down. He wants to take a moment of the lady's attention. He has to tell her something. In their world, after death, everyone goes to heaven to wait for the next life. But there are people who have touched the cursed gift, and they have no place in heaven. They live on earth even after death. In the guise of evil spirits, they devour the souls of people, inhabiting their bodies, after which a person loses his or her mind, and memory becomes cloudy, awareness of life is lost. And when thoughts finally fade, the person dies. The spirit looks for a new body. The girl was shocked. So all the stories about evil spirits and rebirth are not really fiction. They really live in this world. As a priest, the man can cast out these spirits, so he came to her to make sure that her soul was not dependent on them, so if she let him, he would take her hand. But the girl was scared. She didn't know if he wouldn't realize that she wasn't Albertina at all, and she had to come up with something soon. He wants to know whether the girl's soul is independent, whether this means that he will find out who she really is, because Albertina is just dependent on her. The lady hesitantly stretched out her hand to the man, and he asked her not to worry. It would not hurt. It all ended very soon and unexpectedly for the girl. Pure golden light emanated from her. Nothing torments her soul. Everything is as it was before. The maid was watching, and it was good that she was an addict. She would inform the count that everything was fine and the man could finally leave. But the lady was shocked that he was leaving. He couldn't leave so soon. He knew a lot and could share it with her. It would definitely help her. Albertina ran up to the Druid and grabbed him by the shoulders, asking him what he meant, what kind of magic it was, how he realized she was not addicted. She was already very confused about what the soul is not tormented by anything meant, what had to happen to prevent this from happening, and he understood everything. Testa was a little embarrassed. He asked her to calm down. He was going to tell her a little about it. The lady apologized. It was a new experience for her. She was just a little nervous. She panicked and lost her temper, and she needs to pull herself together now. Prince Killian was watching all this, and he was dissatisfied with the manners of his future wife. The lady was curious about what he was muttering, but she couldn't hear anything, if only she could read lips. The Druid began to explain that his powers had touched her soul. A pure soul has a golden light. A spiritually addicted soul would have a purple light. It's like a litmus test of the soul. What if the soul is not possessed by an evil spirit, but by a human soul? Can he understand this? Is she not the only one? She wanted to ask more, but couldn't. The maid clapped her hands, saying that the lady didn't have time to talk. Her schedule was too full. She had an etiquette lesson after the second breakfast, and they couldn't be late. They had already detained Sir Killian, and he got up from his seat and said that there was nothing wrong. He just wanted to know how his fiancée was feeling, and that brunch could wait. The man said that Mrs. Rosenberg was busy at the moment, so no one was waiting for the two of them. This meant that they would have breakfast only together, but she didn't want that. The gentleman told her that she needed to pay more attention to her manners. Testa was about to leave, but he approached the lady and told her that from the palace gate there was a road to the village, and among the houses there would be one with a blue roof, his house, and if she needed help, she could come. He touched the girl's face with his hand, and the pure golden light appeared again, and she immediately became sure that his sympathy was a sign of goodwill and a suitable feeling for Albertina. She thanked the pilgrim. The man smiled. He was quite intrusive, told her to be lenient, and left. The lady felt this feeling again. I wondered where it came from and why it appeared. The workers were resting, all eating and talking. Some didn't want to dismantle the barn. Some needed to sort through the food. Some had been working for 5 days. And the maids were even worse off. Elma was sitting alone between them, depressed and in no mood. Albertina was sitting in her office, shocked to hear that the wedding would last for 7 days. She thought the ceremony would take a whole week. The woman explained to her that the wedding would be only 1 day, and they would be hosting guests for the next 6 days, which is the Rotary family tradition. It's quite unusual for them, but traditions are traditions, and the emperor treats his half-brother with love, so everything has to go like that. The Rotary themselves demand that the wedding ceremony be according to their traditions, because Prince Killian's wife is to become the future ruler of Edelwald. At the end of the ceremony, she is to be dressed in traditional clothes and taken to her land. The girl was shocked to hear that it was really so harsh. They start looking at the map, and Albertina is shown where Edelwald is located. Most of the borders are covered by the sea, so there are frequent floods, and these lands are very dear to their family. Her stepmother begins to tell her that she has no right to their inheritance. Only the eldest of the Rosenberg sons could receive them. Her children do not inherit either. They will only be able to give it to her when there is a truly worthy heir. The lady thought it wasn't so bad, but when she and her stepmother stayed alone, it was completely different. Their palace is very large. Everyone mostly sits in their rooms. Their family can go whole days without seeing each other. Sometimes it seems that they are avoiding each other on purpose. Meetings require a leash, even if it's for mom and daughter. Albertina did not understand whether the bad attitude was due to the fact that she was from another woman or for some other reason. It is still unclear whether her stepmother is her friend or enemy. A maid came into the room and asked if they were free because she needed to talk to a lady. The woman turned to the girl and offered to take a break and continue after noon. She shook her head and agreed. She could have gone for a walk in the garden and rested, but the maid had questions for her as well. This confused the two women. The assistant hands over a list of gifts. They are for the Rotary family. They moved them to the guest room and another part to the barn. But the main thing was the guest list. We needed to hear Albertina's opinion. The lady was shocked as to why they wanted to discuss this with her, and just to hear her opinion. The maid wanted to talk to her about Elma, who has been avoiding her a lot lately, so she offered to take her with her. The teacher praised the little girl and said that she was a real treasure of Rosenberg, but it's all the woman's fault. Her classes help a lot. She was asked if she was hungry, but she just wanted to get some fresh air, so she said she was going for a walk and then would have lunch. She took off her shoes. She couldn't take it anymore. She only hoped that no one saw that she was barefoot. The girl sat down and leaned against a tree because of the bushes that covered her. No one could see her there. Until now, she did not understand how ladies wear such shoes. They are not comfortable. The girl hoped that when she grew up, she would not wear these terrible shoes. At the same moment, she heard strange sounds. She looked to where the sound was coming from, and there was her sister Elma's maid, running away from the other two maids from the palace. The girls managed to catch up with her and catch her by the arm, and the girls screamed for them to leave her alone and let her go. But they were not going to do it. To understand the reasons for everything that is happening, we need to go back a little bit, namely to this morning. The maid told them that they had finished all the work, so they could leave and go to rest, which Elma did with the others. Before she could leave, she was intercepted by 3 girls who started making fun of her because this work is unusual for her, and she probably spends a lot of time on it. One of them approached the smaller girl, wiped her clothes, asked her if it was hard for such a fragile girl to carry boxes, if she was afraid of ruining her clothes. Another assistant wanted to join the conversation, but her friend stopped her. They wouldn't listen to them anyway. The brown-haired girl laughed, jokingly apologizing for having smeared her dress a little, although it could have been much more soiled. The girl was drying her dress. She didn't understand why they didn't like her dress again, so she asked them. They refused to wash her clothes, and she didn't know what to wear to avoid being picked on. They continued to mock the younger one, saying that she couldn't wash it herself yet, and if she did, she should wear it dirty, or that she was tired of wearing such a strange dress. The girl wanted to leave them. She explained that a maid should always look neat. She was tired of explaining anything to them. They only reminded her that the lady had abandoned her and no one else would protect her. One of the girls hovered over her and continued to put pressure on her. Perhaps she had forgotten about her maid, or simply realized who she really was. Without her patronage, she is nothing. The assistant continued to say insulting things, that since her luck had turned away from her, after the wedding the lady would leave and start a new life, that they would no longer be bound by anything, that it was high time to get rid of such a pain in the ass. Elma couldn't take it anymore. She kicked the girl who was saying all this and shouted at them to leave her alone. She ran away from the scene as soon as possible. She had to get away from there. Albertina always told her that if someone offends her, she should not give herself to the lunch. Not everyone in this world is pure of heart. She should not lose herself and always stand her ground. The little lady was watching everything that was happening. They grabbed Elma by her dress and shouted that she didn't belong there, that a monkey belonged in the forest and she should go there. She tried to fight back, began to say that at least she was not as miserable as they were. All they could do was mock her just because she did not listen to them. Elma finally managed to push her away. They don't dare move her. They don't realize who they've messed with yet. A little lady dared to come out from behind the bushes. She could no longer listen to anything. No one understood what she was doing here. The girl pointed her finger to the side. She doesn't care about their conflict, but she immediately demands that they stop everything that is happening. She doesn't think her father will like their behavior. The maids tried to say something else, but they were not given the right to do so. They are not supposed to make a sound. Do they dare to object to the lady? If so, the Danik will find something to do with them. The head maid apologized to the girl, saying that it was her fault and that her subordinates would be punished for what happened. Albertina's sister asked her not to apologize, but her father would not support such behavior. He would punish her to the fullest extent. They had to deal with it as soon as possible, and she hoped it would not happen again. The woman promised that this would not happen again. The girl had to go back. But she could not walk because she twisted her ankle. She asked someone to help her. She did not need a doctor, and it would go away on its own. The main thing was to get to the room. Elma was ordered to escort the lady to her room and then return to discuss their punishment. The girl was seeing off Albertina's sister, and it was very difficult for her to walk, so she offered to carry her while no one was watching. She lifted the lady with ease. She was lighter than she thought. They walked down the corridor, and the girl thought she would have been lost without her sister. She doesn't do this for nothing. Maybe she should ask. She asked her sharply if she hated her, but Elma said no. She treats her with respect, just like Miss Albertina, but she could get in trouble if she continues to talk about it. The maid thanked the woman for interrupting them. She did not regret hitting them and did not want people to think that she had done the right thing, but one must always be responsible for one's actions. They couldn't go any further together. There were too many servants on the floor above, and she thanked Elma for that. Albertina's sister said that while she was away from the palace, the lady was very lonely, but she saved her from that. The young lady said that if she wanted to leave, she could tell her, and she would do everything to make sure she didn't lose her money. Elma was surprised by such kindness to her, but she was told that this is their agreement, which no one should know about. The maid told me what punishment she would receive. She was given 4 days in lockup. She will not see Miss Albertina's last days either. She received a light punishment, although others asked for more because she hit them. The girl said they deserved it all. The woman did not understand why she could not behave normally. It was not even about those girls. She treated absolutely everyone like that. Elma explained that she didn't want to hang out with such people. She was only staying here because of Miss Albertina. She hates and criticizes them only because they look at a lady like that. And their behavior always gets away with it. They have no conscience. It always covers them and does not think about the girl. The maid asked her what she would do when Albertina left the palace, and she was sure that she would not be able to leave her. She said that she offered the lady to take the girl with her, but she refrained from her offer. She had to understand what it meant. The woman explained that everything that connected them with the lady was forgotten, that she was only living in the palace, that she had forgotten everything, and that she had long since passed away. Maybe Albertina will take her back when her memory returns, but it is not known. For now, Elma will stay in the palace and follow all the rules. Stop quarreling with everyone. The maid seemed to be pressuring her, telling her that she was no longer her maid, but an ordinary servant, hoping that she would do everything she was supposed to do. In the evening, the girl was sitting alone in her room, holding a book, her favorite book, called Elma and Tineke. Her mother always called it as the main character. Elma remembered the day with Albertina. They were reading the same book. Then the lady allowed herself to be called Tineke, which is her nickname, but only her close friends called her that. That's what my mom used to say, and now a girl can do it too. The stepmother was dressed elegantly, and she told her daughter to put her hand on her chest and not to raise her head yet. The lady had done everything she was told, and now she had to try to do it again, and it would be the same at the wedding ceremony, but the dress would be even heavier than now. The woman asked her to listen carefully. She had already said it, but it was important, so she would repeat it again. The forest, especially its thickets, is very dangerous, a place where a lot of trouble can happen, and it is difficult to cope with it. They should not break away from the general formation, even when they are in a safe area, should not walk alone, should not approach strangers, and should memorize all the people who will accompany them. The stepmother called out to Albertina, but she couldn't hear her, so she had to move her to get her attention, and she was scared because she wasn't expecting it. The lady said that she had only seen the guards who arrived here once, but that there was no need to memorize their names, just their faces, which would help. The kingdom of Rotary will be holding a wedding ceremony, and to go to the guy's homeland, the only way is through the forest. In this world, evil spirits live in the forest, so they say it's dangerous to go there without preparation. The entrance to the forest is the safest, but the deeper you go, the more dangerous it is. It's easy to run into wild animals. A maid came into the room and told me it was time to go downstairs. The stepmother asked the girl to go downstairs with her, but she told her that it was unnecessary, that it was no longer necessary. But the woman denied all her words. She was worried about their family, so she needed to personally greet their guests. The special measures needed to safely pass through this forest are to divide the power, which will temporarily block the access of evil spirits. With these priests from Pererin, in other words, Druids. Testa offered his help. He wants to accompany them until they pass through the forest. He has to replace the pilgrim who could not come because of his schedule. Albertina shared her experiences, and a servant has not yet been chosen for her, so one person can still join. For my husband, it was not a problem. It was just one person. He could not worry anymore and be calm. The lady was sitting in a gazebo in the garden. Lunch is in 30 minutes, but she can't even get a bite down her throat. There are too many thoughts in her head about what to do with it. If she sees Elma, even if she doesn't like it, she has one question. When she returns to her world, what will happen to this body? Albertina's spirit who came to get her is sleeping somewhere, so will it be able to return to her body when she leaves? That would be a really great ending to all of this. Usually, when she just starts thinking like everyone else, Albertina is already dead. She has summoned someone to replace her. Isn't it possible that the girl just replaced her soul in her own body? When she fulfills the lady's wish and returns to her body, this body will be that child. She saw Elma on the side. The girl was lying on the couch, even the kitchen was busy today, and she still had to pack her suitcases to load them tomorrow. But even for that, they needed people. She wanted to cry. She didn't want to be called for help. She wanted everyone to forget about her. She was nothing to Tineke anymore. Memories from that day came to mind, and Albertina asked her to keep a distance between them because she couldn't remember anything, and her care was a little unnecessary. She was sure that she could wait until her memory returned, and if she waited, everything would be fine. Fear that you don't even know who you are. The moment you open your eyes and don't remember anything, Elma understands what it's like. The most lasting memory this child has is the smell of grass and dew-soaked earth. All she had in her body was a feeling of avoiding something, as if she was running away from some terrible things, and she was scared. This child did not remember what he was running away from or why. It was automatic, a means of self-defense. It instinctively runs away from everything that repels, from everything that is dangerous. It could do nothing else. It was raining, and out of desperation and not knowing what to do next, the girl just sat down on the ground and started crying. She heard a sound behind her, and her curiosity got the better of her, so she turned around. There was a horse, and a blonde girl was lying next to it. She was not moving. For safety, she took a stick to move the girl, as she had to find out if she was at least alive or conscious. She was alive, but completely exhausted, and when she was able to get up, she asked what the child was doing in this city. Elma decided to act. She got up and started to dress. It was her last chance. She wanted to ask Tinika to take her with her. She was sure that she was better than the others, only she knew what the lady liked and what she didn't. But maybe if she had lost her memory, her tastes had changed, which confused the girl. But she didn't mind starting from the beginning. She would definitely remember everything quickly. She went and persuaded her, saying that she would definitely be useful to her, that she could do anything for her, but she was still afraid of what would happen if she refused. Albertina wasn't in her room, although it was class time, but maybe she left early for lunch. She wanted to go take a quick look. But if there were other people there, she would come back in the evening. Through the window, Elma saw that the lady was outside, so she immediately ran to her. The girl could not see where she was running, and so she ran into Prince Killian in the corridor. The woman who came up was his servant, and she started quarreling. The girl should not have been running around where such honorable people walked, and Rosenberg should have known how to teach his servants manners. The man told them to skip this topic. The woman has to go and check the place for today's lunch. It was an order from him. She bowed and left. He asked if she was looking for Albertina by any chance, and she didn't answer, but began to apologize for her lack of education. Killian began to tell her that as long as she served that girl, there would come a time when she would say she didn't need her, and eventually she would get rid of her. The prince continued to press the girl. She did not look up at him. She did not understand why everyone was telling her about it. She decided to run away, shouting that she would never leave my lady alone, no matter what anyone said. The man looked after her. He was sure that when she saw Mrs., he would be very upset. She was behaving stupidly. Elma had all the memories of that time in her head, the maids who said she was nothing without a lady, the words of the little lady and another assistant, everyone repeating it to her every time. She was running forward without looking anywhere in such a destructive relationship when she doesn't remember anything and behaves as if it's forever. It was hard. Albertina had been suffering a lot since their first meeting, so Elma always thought that she would leave her and go away. But the idea that she would leave her alive never occurred to her, so she tried to convince her that if she took her, she would be useful. She stopped when she came to the lady. She was very confused. The first thing she could say was that she had made a mistake. Then she tried to collect herself, to calm down, because she knew that there was a person who knew her at least a little bit. So she started to say that she was treated as a valuable person, and she was really pleased. Elma continued to say that she wanted to do this for her as well, and she didn't think it would put pressure on the lady. She understood why she wanted to stay away from her. She wants to cope with this now, so she hopefully asks Albertina if she can go with her. The girl began to worry. She apologized, promised to correct her manners. She said she would handle anything she said. The lady quickly got up from her seat. She asked me not to apologize to her. There was nothing she couldn't handle. It wasn't about that at all. She wanted to speak out, but this was not the right time to come clean. It was better to end the suffering now. Elma said that she would do anything. She didn't know how to do much, but she was already crying and begged me not to leave her here. She was afraid to be alone again. Albertina got down on her knees, felt sorry for the girl, apologized, and offered to go with her, but let her not cry. At night, the girl got out of bed. She didn't want to sleep at all. She was nervous, though everything was fine, and it was a necessary choice to take her with him, in an even more unfamiliar place of Rotary, and by comparing her to this mansion, Elma would become a person you could trust. This was good, of course, but until the girl revealed that she was not Albertina at all, it frightened the lady. The lady didn't know if it would be right to leave like that, because she hadn't learned anything about the most important thing yet. Albertina took a risky step, choosing the best she could do. She thought that if she continued to act like this, she would be able to go wherever she wanted, but nothing has changed. It seems she will stay here forever. There was a knock on the door of the room. Someone asked if she was awake. She opened the door, and there was the Countess standing there, apologizing for coming so late. But she had something important that she had to give her right away. The woman handed her the box, saying that it was a Rosenberg family heirloom, a sign that was passed down to the owner Edelwald. It was Edelwald's seal. It looked simple, it wasn't a pendant, and when she opened it, she saw that it was a compass. The Countess went on to tell us about the forest, which is full of magic, and when an ignorant man steps into it, he will not be able to get out of this endless sea of trees and will become a dead guest there. Albertina immediately thought that the compass was her guide, and she was right. If she kept it with her, she wouldn't get lost in the forest. The woman said that it was to be handed over to Edelwald, but for now she should keep it, and if possible she should not let go of it and keep it with her. Finally, the Countess asked me to hide it so that no one would see it, and of course I wondered why. It could be considered that she was just very worried about Albertina. If you increase its value, its security will also increase. The girl decided to ask a rather childish question, asking whether she was on her side or not. The woman was a little confused by this question. Count, her father has no way of knowing anyway. If it's something she has to handle, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But what happens if she gets caught? The Countess began to say that she shouldn't pay so much attention to it. Albertina asked if by passing this on to her, the woman didn't want to add to her problems, or just trap her in a situation where she couldn't understand her. The Countess was shocked by what she heard. The woman began to say that she would not do such things, but even if she did, there was no point in justifying herself now, even if it could be a lie to deceive her. This man is really trying to help Albertina sincerely, but at what cost? Whether this kindness in the house is temporary or real. So the girl sincerely asked how faithful the woman was to her. She said that this was her limit, and Albertina asked her not to apologize, so after that, the woman decided to leave the room. The lady stopped her. It was a little late, but she wanted to know her name as they might not meet in person again, and the woman introduced herself as Nina, or rather Antonina. The lady thanked her, and she will be indebted to her for a long time. For some reason, this scared the guest very much. She looked at the girl again and quickly left the room. The woman who came out fell to her knees, and the child who remembers nothing did not refuse, showing as much sincerity as he could. She hoped that it would be the absolution of her sins. Her daughter was alive, she was 20 years old, and she would soon leave the mansion. The woman asked someone to let her go. She would not be able to forgive. She addressed someone named Marta. Day of departure. The Druid Testa checked to see if Elma was not addicted to spirits, and it was good that she was not. Albertina entered the carriage. She was dressed elegantly. Her dress had a brown corset and green inserts. The little lady, her stepsister, watched the girl leave the palace. She was sad. She probably wouldn't come back to this place again, but she hoped she would be happy. She left her home with Elma, and they had a long and difficult journey ahead of them. The heroine was sleeping on the train. She accidentally missed her station and realized it when she woke up, when the voiceover was already at another stop. The girl quickly ran out of the train and ran home. She came home. She asked her brother if there was anything in the fridge. She was a little late, so she didn't have time to go to the store, so dinner will come from that. What we have. The guy was sleeping. He woke up when he heard his sister come home. He told her to just order something to eat. The girl was against it. They didn't have much money, and she didn't know what he wanted to eat, but she decided to make kimchi. The guy stood in the doorway. He was telling her that she should finally quit one of her part-time jobs because she had no free time. The girl started joking around. She didn't understand what was wrong with him. Did he really get a raise this month? But he told her to stop doing that. Rotary said that everyone lives like this. It won't be for long anyway until he starts working, and until then she will do everything to make them feel better. She wouldn't survive if something happened to him, so she asks him to just take care of the house, sleep well, and work. The guy was pleased but also sad to hear this. The girl continued to talk about the routine. When Ruta would come to cook her an egg, she would ask if he had called the nurse. The guy didn't answer this question. He said that she shouldn't worry about it. She's not Ruli anymore. Someone from the side started saying that she was not Tinaki. They asked who she was. It was Elma. The girl kept telling her that she was a liar, that she didn't know what to do, that she was scared. Albertine wakes up. She is riding in the same carriage and is woken up by her personal maid, who asks if her lady is well. The girl apologized for waking her up. She must have had a nightmare. She asked if she was feeling well, maybe she was seasick. Pawnee sat there and did not understand what was happening. She had not yet woken up from her sleep. She was offered to go to sleep a little longer, and when they arrived, they would wake her up. She bowed her head. The nightmare was indeed terrible. The man had been talking to Joseph. He would be leaving at dawn, and now only the Edelwald representative had arrived at the inspection, as his wife was delayed on the way. He was surprised how a sick child could get here, how he could sell his granddaughter by sending a bunch of bad words in such elegant handwriting. Everything gets worse after Reinberger. If this is his family, it's terrible. Which is why even after Martha's death, it was noble that they supported the alliance with the Rosenbergs. The man asked Joseph, at least before he left, to treat him kindly. He was the master, and he spoke to him so arrogantly. The assistant began to say that there might be hidden intentions. But the Count was angry. He said angrily that it was no longer decent. The man bowed and apologized. It didn't mean that he didn't draw a line. If he wasn't an idiot who would have lost this marriage, Rotary would have gradually pushed back this line, which he had set. Finally, the Count said that when he did something useful, he would thank him, but only if he screamed while eating his food. This is the perfect time to prepare the camp in silence. She got lost in her own thoughts. She said she understood that it was a different world. A few hours ago, Albertina was very sick. She thought she was dying. Elma brought my lady some round seeds. She told her to chew them slowly and then swallow them. It would reach the stomach and help. The lady thanked him and swallowed what she was given while the girl watched. The girl wanted to touch the heroine, but she was so sick that she didn't realize it right away. Her eyes were swimming. She was scared. Eventually, she came to, realized that it was just Elma. She was apologizing to the lady. She just wanted to wipe her back. A pilgrim came out of the bushes, smiling, saying that if we were going at this speed, anyone in the carriage would get sick. Albertina said there was nothing they could do about it. They needed to get to a safe place quickly before it got dark. Tetya was asked when the forest was safer because someone had heard that it was at night, and it would be a good idea to go at that time. The workers who heard this were a little embarrassed and confused, a little scared to be in the forest. The Druid began to explain that in order to do this, you have to learn how to do it, if you watch and listen to it from childhood. The girl was upset. She had been studying a lot, but it seems she doesn't know anything, not even what she thought she knew. The man was scared because he did not want his words to sound like a reproach. The pilgrim goes on to say that evil spirits gather in the forest. It is not a simple habit, but a binding against one's will. They can appear anywhere, move to places where light does not penetrate. The man goes on to say that it is possible to live and avoid evil spirits only with the help of two magical methods. The first way was magic, which binds all evil spirits when the sun is on the earth. The second method was completely different. When the sun goes down, the monsters hide, and that's when the magic of Asperia appears. In the nest, where the roof and walls are lined up, a window in the tree, consisting of pearls, appears, letting the light of the evening star inside, and then the curtain of tree leaves disappears. Elma says the phrase, "Let my existence be peaceful." It's a famous expression, she's heard it, so this magic is called the forgiveness of the evening star. The girl laughed. Albertina didn't remember, but she had taught her this earlier. Memories immediately flashed through her mind. She was told that the protection she would be given was not a power that lasted long, so if she didn't get out of the forest before sunset, she wouldn't be able to hide from the monsters. The Testa touches the tree, says that it is made of pearls and will be their guide. It creates safe zones with borders when there is a danger of evil spirits attacking. They are not allowed to go beyond these boundaries, the man says, and if there is no cart, they must go to a tree and wait by it. He ends the conversation, saying that everything he had said before was safety rules for when someone stays overnight here, so the girls have to follow them. Elma was delighted. She went on to say that it was all good, because it would be good to stay overnight. They had spent so much time in a wagon that was closed on 4 sides and had only one window. The Druid touched the tree with his hand. It was amazing. A power that encompassed and acted on literally the whole world. Pure light appeared around. The borders of the tree appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was the first time they had seen such a thing. It was a safety zone. Albertina looked at it with admiration, as she, like the others, saw this phenomenon for the first time. The pilgrim told everyone that borders do not work for wild animals, so you need to be careful, and now he will go to other areas in their safety zone. He promised to be back before dawn, but the answer was not precise. He added that as soon as the sun went down, they should go to the wagon and stay there until dawn, so they would definitely be safe. The man gets on his horse, says that all this is not forever. Borders and help are only temporary. The effectiveness of magic is greater and more reliable. If possible, they should be careful. His help is always with them. After all this, the lady blushed. She was silent. Elma was watching. The lady was all in her thoughts. It was a different world. Now she is here and continues to think about all these words, everything else. There is no life in this space. Only she is lagging behind the others. Everyone was waiting. Everyone was busy doing their own thing. A strange sound was heard from the forest, and the two assistants heard it, and at first they did not immediately understand what was happening. The faithful knight Killian was covering Lady Albertina, and it was from her side that the sound came. The lady was shocked. Elma heard it too, so she pushed the soldier away and ran to the forest alone. The pilgrim continued to walk to other villages. He was a little confused because he was half a day late. The borders must have disappeared by now, but he hoped that everyone was safe. He hoped he could finish everything before sunset, as long as the horse didn't get tired. He touches the stone from his pendant. It starts to glow, and there are 3 more places to go. The man was exhausted. He had never done this before, and it was really a bit hard for him. The barrier he set up is only a temporary help for 3 days, but if the priest comes earlier, he will feel more comfortable. A magical blue butterfly flew up to the Druid. It was from the pilgrim Serinus, at the site of the protective barrier of the 13th district of Rosenberg. It seems that today it will be possible to replace it. The man was asked to pass this information on to the person responsible for this. He exhaled and said that he had already passed the information on and introduced himself, saying that he was Testa. For some reason, the butterfly became very unhappy and flew away from him, and the man did not understand why. It was simple. You don't see young people who have just started to live a full life working anywhere now. Testa contacted him again, saying he would be late, but he came early. A man in a hood came up from the back. He said that he didn't have to make a lap, so he came early. They were told not to return to the village, but to show their faces, and then they would tell him the result of their special investigation earlier. The man interrupted them. He also had something to say. He said that among the travelers passing through the forest was the eldest daughter of the Count of Rosenberg. Butterfly was shocked by this information. It was the same girl. He was too busy with Rotary to find out. The pilgrim tells him that the girl is in the middle of the forest, in the biggest barrier. He just set up a defense, and there were no special problems during the day. He is told that the main problem will be when the sun goes down and the priest is not around. A strange case where Knox has become stronger, and they will be better off staying protected. The man asks Testa to accompany them towards Rosenberg, which was not a problem. But if he now asks him to accompany them to the Duchy of Rosenberg, it will be worse. But the girl will be used to use them. In a situation where she is also connected to the Rotary royal family through her wedding, they cannot negotiate calmly. In the end, the girl will never take their side. It is likely that it will be difficult only for them. Testa knows this race even very well. If you just look at it, it is no different from other Knoxes. The fact that the passage has opened, but the body is weak, means that the soul cannot connect with the body. Seren says that this is a problem, because of which people often do not live long. And it is not like a disease that can be cured. It is unrealistic to cure it by itself. They need to feel what they cannot see with their eyes. In other words, the period when this girl's mother was alive. She was justifying her husband at the time. Perhaps there were hidden intentions, why she did not ask to hide her daughter's features. The man says that it would be good if the curse of the Rotary family and that girl were linked. Elma walked over to the bushes from which the sound was coming, crouched down, and looked in. The girl got a fox out of there. She was still very young and probably just got lost from her mother fox. Prince Kilian's assistant started shouting at the girl in the forest, especially in such a situation. It is so ill-considered, not to mention her manners. They questioned the dignity of her mistress. Elma was scared. She started to say that she was just scared, so if she checked soon who was there, everyone would feel safer. The girl bowed her head to the woman and apologized for what she had done. The girl went up to Albertina and asked her to forgive her for it. The lady did not know what to say. She felt sorry for her maid. Elma was almost crying with her head bowed, ashamed of what she had done and resentful as well. The man told the woman that there are no wolves in this forest, only wild boars, but in any case they cannot navigate well when the road is so branched. But she noticed blood on the fur of a fox they had seen during the day. Just in case, she asked her husband to set fire to the grass to drive the animals away, and to mix water with the juice of the herbs and spray it on the horses and wagons. Everyone did what they were told, and the nobility stood by a tree of pearls. Elma looked at the lady anxiously, asking if she was okay to at least eat some dried fruit, because she hadn't put anything in her mouth all day. Albertina replied that everything was fine. She came back to finish the conversation. She didn't feel comfortable when someone served only her. She asked the girl not to worry so much about her, to let her relax a little. The girl bowed to the lady. She said she was going to help others, and if she needed anything, she should just call. Elma left with many different thoughts in her head. A simple maid should not cry because her master said she was no longer needed. You can't cry, but still, the girl could not hold back her words if Tineke saw this. And even if she was uncomfortable around her, she would still hold her, because even when she did not remember anything, she remained just as caring. Albertina saw that she was crying. She bowed her head, covered her face with her hands. She thought it would be better not to say it. Prince Killian turned to the girl and said that she was a really understanding hostess, but did she think that her excuses were not convincing at all? Her husband asked her why she had hired a maid she didn't need. Her voice trembled, and for some reason her eyes were darting back and forth. Her hobby was too noble. It was hard to follow her. The girl exhaled. She was shocked that he could judge people so strongly as soon as there was a reason to start an argument. But she would hold back so that nothing would happen. Even if they should get married, wouldn't it be good if she tried to improve what she can't do well? Even if she gives him the signal, let's live together, he will ignore her and be rude in return. If he doesn't like her, he should. Even if he doesn't like the situation, she didn't know what Albertina was like, but she couldn't stand it any longer. The lady goes on to tell him that it would be better if he didn't. Killian was enraged by this behavior. The guy was carrying a bucket of water. He heard strange sounds from the forest again, but he didn't attach any importance to it, thinking it was mountain animals again. This time it was not wild animals. It was an evil spirit. The Druid was shocked. He did not realize what was in. His fellow travelers say that there were rumors that he was terribly scary, and that he was indeed a sight you couldn't watch for long. But there were no assumptions that no one had before them. No one had ever. It was as if he was mesmerized by someone, a phenomenon when everything comes together in one place. The hooded man turned to the test. Doesn't he want to check? It's none of his business, so he didn't get in, but this time he couldn't help but ask what was really on the other end. The man takes off his hood. In this world, souls having descended from heaven and settled in a human body begin their lives in this way. Those souls whose life ends return to paradise again, and again wait for their turn for the next life. What path does the soul go? Their lives begin and end through that door. At the moment of life and at the moment of death, that door opens. Sometimes at the moment of birth, the door is left open and mutants appear. They are called Knox. The man said that it was impossible that Knox had the power to create such a thing. His partner grabbed his arm and began. The example of people asking for power from the cursed to cure people born Knox is not so rare, but so far the man has not seen a single successful case. The guy said that the girl was a successful case, but he didn't. One of them raises his wand and says that there are only two things that can cure Knox. It's the cursed and magic. With the help of his rod, he lifts everyone into the air, and in a moment they are elsewhere. The men walked on. One of them was worried. He would rather go back and look at the place again. He asked the others to tell him if they knew anything. It was too much for him. And the Russian-haired guy said that he was a simple man, unlike them. And Testa interrupts their conversation, shouting that they should move faster. Why are they two so carefree? But immediately he got a baton on the head. They asked him why he was so worried. Maybe he was afraid that his partner approached the Russian-haired man from behind, telling him not to get angry, that he had a hunch why the Druid was behaving like that. He asked Testa if the girl was the one, and just whether he was afraid that the people he had come here with would get hurt, since he was very much imbued with feelings for people. Pilgrim asked about the rumors about the Knoxes. They know perfectly well how much noise it will make if it is known in society. The boy replies that he already understands that many will suffer from persecution, from evil spirits, and that when you are in the same, but there was still a reason to worry, as Rosenberg is a district where they are particularly keen to get rid of bad things. When such situations happen, people often say, "This is the work of the..." Albertina saw the evil spirit for the first. The Russian-haired guy asks Tetya again to clarify. Druid says that even though she is now on her way to Rotary to get married there, she is still stuck in the forest. Then they realized why they were looking for her. She was important because she was connected to Rotary, but they still asked her husband if... Rusovolosi says that the scale of the situation has... Tetya was told to contact the person concerned, meaning Albertina. The guy walked around Testa, told him to report on the situation. The pilgrim asked him what he was going to do, and he turned around with a strange face and he took his rod in his hands again. It shone with pure light. First on the way, they would have to get rid of all this that would be waiting for them. Prince Killian's warriors wanted to keep things in their hands, and they will only be able to find out the cause. So far, they are all protected from evil spirits by the barrier. But it is not known. The woman had never seen the barrier break before, but she still had no confidence in it. She gave everyone errands, telling someone to call 2 carriages and take the horses there. Someone to take care of Mr. Killian. Then the woman grabbed Elma by the arm. She said that everyone else was following her. The knight approached the prince and his bride. They should also... Albertina ran after them. She had a rather strange feeling. She stopped abruptly and turned around. Thinking it was ringing, she felt a coldness in her ears and through her body, and he kept repeating it over and over again, forcing her to go in because he was there too. The lady started to faint. She couldn't stand still. The knight picked her up. He tried to find... Albertina turned to her husband in fright. The knight repeated that he had offered to walk her to the carriage, but there were no sounds around. She fell to the ground frightened, thinking that everyone had heard it. Not just her, but she was wrong. Elma came to her aid. The girl tried to attract attention. She asked if my lady was okay. Everyone started shouting, asking me to look away. Clear light was coming from the forest. Someone was entering their barrier. A druid came out from there and used his wand to enter them. Albertina looked at the Russian-haired guy as if he was familiar to her. Killian's assistant ran up to him. He came at the right time. She asked if he was a pilgrim. She heard that he could not. The clothes of the guards under the direct command of King Rotar, even the knights of Rotar. For some reason, the woman was outraged, and she told him that the Rotaras and they were going to rest behind the barrier that night. But something unforeseen happened. Evil spirits that always avoided the power of the Druid. The Druid begins to tell us that there was a rumor before, a story about a girl named Knox from the Everyone started interrupting him, saying that it wasn't just a rumor. The girl waved her hands. She really didn't hear anything. Everyone in the house was always watched. Albertina listened to what they were saying. Was it true? There must be a reason why they were... Another knight came up to the head and asked if they were telling the truth. Shouldn't it concern the Rotarians? His Highness tried very hard to obtain consent for this marriage, but it was not worth believing rash proposals either. It was all too suspicious. Rosenberg is a family with a rich history. Edelwald, it's a fierce competition, where the weak are pushed out of the family line, which is the reason why I was going to put him on the same level as Rotar's illegitimate son, because he has the same disadvantage. Rumors have always circulated that the reason why the late lady did not... If we only suggest that the Count's daughter is really Knox, the woman thought, comparing them to... If it becomes known about the nobleman's daughter, who is called Knox, nothing good will happen, even if they... The people around them kept whispering, but my lady Albertina approached the knights frightened. She did not understand what was happening and asked... The Druid was asked to check the lady. She was a little embarrassed. She didn't understand how to check it. And she didn't know what Knox was, either. The guy said there was nothing he couldn't do, but as everyone knows, you can't tell the difference in the light of the soul, which is suspicious in itself. Then he speaks more angrily, since they suspect her, and want to see if they can believe his words, the words of a pilgrim. He turned around, said he was leaving. He needed to investigate the cause of this phenomenon. It would be much better now. The woman stopped him. She asked if he could stay a little longer. It was the first time they had seen such spirits and the phenomena. He told them that they just needed to calm down, and then the evil spirits would not break the barrier, and they should not. In the end, he said that if they understood everything he said, they should go to the wagon now, and they could just wait for the pilgrim. Albertina was sitting in a carriage. It was a dead of night. Her mind was a mess, and she couldn't sleep. Suddenly she heard a strange sound, and she raised her head to look around the place and understand its cause.